So I was born in Melbourne, but I actually grew up in Sydney, in the outer suburbs of Sydney, in an area called the Hills District, and a very leafy suburb, about 35 kilometres northwest of Sydney. Beyond where we lived was market gardens and farms. Now the urban sprawl has gone about another 30 kilometres beyond that, but it was a really good upbringing, and we have a very tight family, the youngest of 4 boys. My eldest brothers, none of them musicians, but all music appreciators. My parents, very fair and very loving, so we had a really good upbringing. Now their marriage didn't last the distance, but they divorced with dignity, and they're still very civil with each other to this day. And I'm very fortunate they've lived a very long life and still continue to be reasonably healthy. So I'm very, very appreciative of that. I don't remember harassing my parents to learn guitar. It kind of just was either suggested or I suggested it, and that by the next week I was at the local guitar teacher, Mr. K's place, learning guitar, and ever since then I've loved it. I've never had a moment where I've gone off it. I've always been doing it and playing and trying to get better. And, at school we had some great music teachers that helped us along the way, guys like Bruce Rickson and Gary Taylor, and another guy called Steve Hogan, who wasn't a music teacher but he was in a band, so we got to see what it was like when he would play. So all those guys were very important, and I'm very thankful for them, for their efforts. So when I was about 12 or 13 years old, I discovered Phil and Tommy Emmanuel, and that just changed my direction and my focus, and I wanted to play like those guys. And they would have become known to me later on because they kind of became household names in Australia. But at that point, when I was a young kid, I just wanted to play like those guys, and I've never achieved it because they are up here and the rest of us are here. But it's good to have a goal. But really learning from those guys later on, I would have private lessons with both of them individually at separate times, and I would say there'd be very few people in the world that can say that. I feel very privileged to have that influence and to sit opposite them and learn guitar. I've met some famous musicians in my time, but nothing ever came close to the feeling I had of sitting opposite both Phil and Tommy Emmanuel learning guitar. It was still something I think of very fondly to this day. We got the lovely cherry blossom snow. Guitar heroes, electric players like David Gilmour, Peter Frampton, Santana, Jeff Beck, they've all been there since I've been a young kid. Later on I would discover people like Gary Moore and Danny Gatton, and of course Ian Moss from an Australian band called Cold Chisel. He was a big influence. And then the fingerstyle guitar players, guys like Chet Atkins, of course, and more recently Buster B. Jones and Doyle Dykes have been big influences. But certainly for electric guitar, it's Phil and Tommy Emmanuel, because Tommy's an awesome electric player as well. But the acoustic guitar, Tommy. The 80s in Australia was a really good time for music. There's a lot of great bands from Australia like In Excess, Midnight Oil, The Angels, Rose Tattoo, of course AC/DC. But there were some bands that weren't quite as big beyond Australia, bands like Dragon, My Sex, Icehouse, Mental as Anything, Cold Chisel. These bands are just phenomenal and legendary in Australia. So they were all a big influence, and still to this day, songwriting wise, I would say they are definitely up there in what influences me. Tom, assisting on camera, very loyal friend, has just asked me what my first rock concert was. My first rock concert was at Sydney Opera House, on the steps of Sydney Opera House, On the New Year's Eve of 1979 going into 1980, there was a huge, massive concert, and my mum and dad took me into the city, and it was a free concert, and it was a night where, from memory, Doc Neeson from the Angels was knocked out by somebody hurling a wine bottle at his head. But we'd left long before that happened. But that was my first rock concert. The first time I saw Phil and Tommy Emmanuel was we snuck into a gig at a place called the Auburn RSL Club. I was just astounded. I'd seen Phil play solo before that, and when I was about 14 or so, and I waited outside his dressing room. I knew he had to come out. I waited outside there, and he just walked by. "G'day, mate. Did you enjoy that?" You know, Phil was a absolute champion guy, as is Tommy. But it was very sad to lose Phil a few years ago. I have no preference between acoustic and electric guitar. I'm probably more known for playing electric guitar, but over the last few years, I've definitely put more focus into the acoustic. I enjoy playing the acoustic. It's much more work in that it's more complex. In that you are just out there on your own playing fingerstyle acoustic. You are the drummer, you're the bass player, rhythm guitar player, and the melody player. So it's a pretty big job, but it's very enjoyable. And I see that people enjoy the realness of that. So going from 2016 into 2017, I made a New Year's resolution that I would practice only with a thumb pick to get the level of the fingerstyle stuff up to a higher level. And it took about a month to reprogram the brain, but since then it's been a nice journey of learning and writing new songs in the fingerstyle method. The guitars I use, this is a Godin. This is an A6 Ultra. I've been using this one as my main guitar for acoustic stuff for about 6 or 7 years now. Stock standard. It's a very thin-bodied guitar, but through a PA system it sounds fantastic. Yeah, I'm more than happy to play these, but if someone else came along and gave me a chance to elaborate on this, there'd be some things that I would change. But for the moment, this is a very good guitar, and I've got a couple of them, one tuned to standard tuning and one tuned to open G. For electric guitars, I have a few, but the ones you'll see me out playing are the Fujigens, or the FGNs. Fujigen is the factory, FGN is the brand. These are made in Japan, up in Matsumoto in Nagano, and I get more excited about good value for money than I do about spending, a million yen or $10,000 on a Fender Custom Shop guitar. These guitars are great guitars. They sound great, they feel great, they look great. I pretty much get away with a Strat and a Tele for most gigs, and mostly you'll see me playing a Strat style guitar, but I do enjoy playing the Tele. I came to Japan with the possibility of some music work over here, and it didn't pan out on the first trip, but I went back to Australia and came back to Japan the second time, and ended up working at Gibson Guitars, and then I did that for a couple of years, which was a good job, but it was more important for me to get out there and do my own thing. When my daughter's birth was announced to me, I knew I had to make a decision about whether to stay in Japan or leave. It was a delicate situation at the time, but obviously it was a good and the right decision to stay. Then I started doing the instrumental guitar stuff. So that's 96, I started doing the instrumental guitar show. When I was younger, when I was about 16 or 17, 18, I used to race competitive cycling, and I stopped doing it because of the four curses of a cyclist: booze, cars, girls and guitars. And I became lazy and couldn't put in the 3 hours or 4 hours you need to train each day. But I've always loved cycling, and Japan's a great nation for cycling because it's, if you like hills, there's hills, and if you like the flat, there's a bit of flat stuff. But I really enjoy especially when I'm out on tour, I take my bike with me and go out and explore on the bike. That's a lot of fun. Songwriting for me is a bit of a selfish endeavour because I just kind of write songs for myself. I don't really write them to please anybody or to make a hit song or anything. Of course, if that happened, that would be fantastic. But I've always written the songs I want to write. It starts with an idea, chord progression. Generally, with an acoustic song or an electric song, an interesting chord progression is a good starting point. And then hopefully that will inspire a melody. That's how I do it. It's very simple. And it's generally just sitting down, noodling. Lots of ideas get recorded onto the iPhone and saved up for later. And then we just compile those and see where it takes us. But electric guitars, I'll tend to write a chord progression, go down into the studio and start building the track from there, adding bass and drums and keyboards. And then right at the end, I'll do the melody, because I always find that the harmony should inspire the melody. So when I was out on tour last year, I met a guy who was very kind and offered me some advice about promotion, and he went on and said it was difficult to find information about me, apart from the website and my own stuff. He said, the world has changed, you've got to get out there, even if you're a bit shy and you're not seeking anything beyond being a musician. You should be out there showing off what you actually do. So that's part of what we're doing today. The whole self-producing thing that we as independent musicians have to do, beyond performing, we have to do our websites, do the flyers, do the bookings, do the recording, do the film editing. So self-producing is good because you end up with a bunch of skills that you don't have to rely on anybody else. And it may lead to some extra work as well. I'm not particularly spiritual or religious, but I know there's something going on with music that's we can't explain, because there's this interaction between audience and people playing. And it probably happens with other art as well, but I only know music. So it's a very special thing, and it's something I miss when I don't do it. I'm not able to say there's anything beyond this world. Maybe there is, maybe there isn't. I'm just out there trying to enjoy life and make sure this one is a good one. So if I can bring a smile or enjoyment to people's life, then I've got a pretty good job. So the future looks pretty bright. I've got a few different things going on with the solo stuff. The party, we've just changed singers and we've got some great singers in the party now, so that's really exciting. I've got another project that I'm working on currently. I'll announce that soon. The music production side, we've got the studio working at home, and there's work coming through with that. And then I announced earlier this year that we're going to do a record label as part of the music production company. So that's really exciting. I'm still searching for the ideal candidate to debut on the record label, but I'm not in any rush. We'll find the right person. So the record label and the production company, that's something you can take way into the future. And even if I'm not out touring or performing, you can certainly do that kind of work. So that's really exciting. And I don't need the years to go by any quicker than what they are, but I'm excited about the future.